Des takes us to a Meiji Restoration period-inspired establishment to see what the true value of hospitality is and means.
There are more restaurants in Hong Kong than you can shake a stick at. In a highly competitive F&B environment, restaurants have to sell different things. Some will concentrate on fresh seasonal ingredients, others will sell presentation, and others, decor and design. Now, I think the success of a restaurant really hinges on a combination of those things to create an overall dining experience. It's not hard to find new restaurants to try in Hong Kong. A new one pops up every single day. So what I want to ask you is, what attracts you to a dining experience? And more importantly, what will make you want to come back for more?
I'm sure there are plenty of restaurants that want the answer to that question, Des. There are so many elements to consider. Where do you even begin?
What does hospitality mean to you, and what's the hospitality scene like here in Hong Kong?
Hospitality means to me is about the entire customer journey as soon as he or she walks in the door to leaving the restaurant. Please, Desmond.
Thank you.
I think in a very simple way, it's about food and also service. Food-wise, Hong Kong probably has some of the best in the world.
Sure.
But when it comes to customer service, I think there still can be a lot more training and improvements. So this place, we are doing a lot more about Japanese hospitality. It's about our managers, our staff, how do they go about in conversing with the guest. So some of the little details would include how to go about in bowing, say thank you. For example, in Japan, when it comes to talking with guests, they cannot be looked down upon to the guests. It has to be at the same eye level or below. So what that means is that a lot of our staff, when they talk to the guests, they got to be kneeling down and talking to them.
Tell us more about the restaurant itself and the overall concept of this place, because walking around, it's unlike anything I've seen before.
Yeah. So when I first visited this location, I was immediately very impressed by its potential, mainly with the history and the heritage feel of the building, to the exposed brick walls, to also the layouts of having 6 interconnected rooms. And it reminds me of some of these speakeasy exclusive private clubs in New York. So what we ended up decided to do was to put in 3 different concepts into this one location. And they are the coffee and tea bar, and then our Western Japanese influenced cuisine, as well as a bar that focuses on soju-based cocktails, and also music being played on vinyl records. In terms of the decor and the design, we ultimately used 3 different periods of Japan to be included into the space. So besides the Meiji period, there's also the Taisho period, which follow after Meiji, and also the Showa period, which were basically from the 30s until the 90s. Having a restaurant inside a heritage building is that we can try to do as little as possible and still make it a very warm and environment. The restaurant is trying to pay homage to the Meiji period of Japan. It was a very interesting time in Japan, a period of growth and modernization, where a lot of Western influences, cultures, and lifestyle were introduced to Japan during that time. So it included coffee from the Dutch in the early 1800s to cocktails from America, as well as various different dishes such as hamburg and omelets from Western Europe. The hamburg was something that actually came from Germany. Of course, it made popular in the US, but it was something that also stuck into a lot of Japanese, and it became increasingly popular during the 60s and the 70s in Japan with these kissaten, kind of old school coffee shops in Japan. But it did arrive in Japan back in the late 1800s.
Well, and like with so many things in Japan, what I like about Hamburg steak is it's the Japanese's own spin on the food.
Correct.
Right? Hamburg steak doesn't taste anything like a hamburger in the US.
Yes, we have a chef from Japan who runs our kitchen, and he's the one who's directly responsible for a lot of our food development, recipes. And the beauty with him is that actually all the food here, in terms, the focus is really also on the sauces. And all the sauces we make from scratch on a daily basis.
Wow.
And some of these demi-glace sauce, it may take actually over 8 hours to make.
Wow. This building we're in, of course, is well known to a lot of people in Hong Kong. Many people have been here before. For those coming to this restaurant, what would you like them to get out of it?
I think other than food, it's about the entire customer experience of as soon as they walk in to when they leave. And hopefully when they leave, they get a sense of the old history of Japan and get to experience that.
My chat with Teddy has given me a better idea of the overall concept of this place, the food that's served, as well as what they're trying to go after in terms of service. So now we're going to move from the Meiji period inspired dining room to the Taisho period bar. It's time for some cocktails and music. Chanji-kun,
Hi,
how are you?
very good. How are you doing?
Good to see you.
Basically, this is a Sochu cocktail and music lounge. And if you look back in terms of what happened during the Meiji Transformation era, there was a lot of openness to the Western world.
Sure.
And you had a lot of things coming into Japan,
Yep.
including, for example, a lot of Western culture, for example, music, how they dressed, how they ate, how they drank. And if you look at Sochu itself as a spirit from Japan, it's got a long history back to 400, 500 years ago. But it has never been really understood outside Japan as much. And if you look at the popularity of Sochu versus things like sake, it's actually a lot more consumed within Japan. But people outside Japan know less of Sochu. Sake is, if you think of a fermented sort of drink or a brewed drink, like wine.
Yep.
Whereas Sochu is a distilled spirit,
Okay.
like whiskey.
Okay. Or gin.
Or gin,
Yep.
or vodka. Sochu is a lot more recent relative to sake, and it grew out of more as a blue-collar drink. And if you look at the development of both the sort of drinks, Sochu has been generally a lot more rough in terms of the aroma and the flavor back in those days. So obviously for a Western palate or overseas, it's easier to accept a sake. However, a lot of changes have happened in the last decade or so in the Sochu production. So that has transformed how Sochu is made, how Sochu is presented to the outside world, a lot of changes in terms of how it is used in cocktails. So that is now gradually bringing Sochu to the forefront. So the way we view this place is, this is like paying sort of homage to Sochu as a spirit. So you have the option of drinking Sochu by itself. You have the option of drinking Sochu in a highball, which is a very simple sort of cocktail.
Yep.
Or there are more elaborate cocktails that we basically would have on the menu. So you can drink Sochu in any of these three sort of ways. Our goal is to be able to make Sochu broadly acceptable.
Yep.
Our passion for Sochu, combined with the fact that we have a great team, plus the venue, plus the sort of music, it kind of all has to come together. Guests may or may not understand or recognize Sochu, but what they take away after they leave from here is that they had a great time.
Leanne, tell me about the cafe culture in Japan and how it's reflected here in this space.
呢個冰滴咖啡咧，都係 inspired by 明治時期嘅。
A lot of the elements here are inspired by the Meiji period, including this machine here.
喺荷蘭度發明嘅，
Oh.
喺日本嘅時候咧就好受歡迎，咁都改咗名做京都咖啡。
Oh, I see. Interesting. So this is a ice drip coffee machine, and it was invented by the Dutch. And they brought it over during the Meiji period, and it became so popular that it took on the name of Kyoto coffee. Many of us have had drip coffee before, but drip tea we don't see as much in Hong Kong.
佢呈現到嘅茶咧個香味同埋個甜度咧都會唔同啲。
By doing the drip process through tea, it enhances and brings out different flavors and aromas in the tea. For a patron who comes to visit you here, and whether they're sitting in the tatami mats behind us or here at the coffee bar, what do you hope they take away from their experience?
咁個榻榻米啦，同埋一個 bar counter 咧，都想我哋嘅 barista 同埋 customer 有一個好好嘅交流啊 interaction。
So you're hoping that the customer takes away an exclusive experience, whether it's from the Meiji period inspired architecture and design, or the customer experience where they have close interaction with you. The Meiji Restoration was partly about innovation in science and technology, adoption of Western culture, and generally new ways of doing things. Being here today made me feel like I've traveled back in time to period Japan. It's also reminded me of something that I've always known and appreciated: Japanese-style service. At the top of this segment, I posed a question to all of you. What would make you a repeat customer at a restaurant? Well, for me, it'd definitely be a customer service experience based on impeccable hospitality. The kind of hospitality that comes from anticipating clients' needs, maybe even before they know it, and one that comes from the heart.